Hey students, it's Mr. Wagner here. I hope you guys are doing well. I want you to know that I really miss you, and I'm sad I can't be in the classroom this week, but I'm here to do some teaching nonetheless. So uh, the first half of this unit, as you know, we talked about fractions, and now we're getting into the half of the unit where we're going to be looking at decimals. And so today I wanted to bridge um, those two concepts with how can we convert fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions. So let's take a look at that. Converting, and we're going to start with the easier of the two, which is converting a decimal to fractions. This is the easier one. And this comes down to, do you remember your place values, right? So if we take a decimal like 0 and 253 thousandths, we get that name because we look at what the last place value is here. And our last place value is the 3, which is in the thousandths. Not thousands, thousandths. All right, and just quick review, the 2 is in the tenths, and the 5 is in the hundredths. All right, and obviously there's an infinite number of place values that keep going here, but I'm just going to stick to these 3 for now. But we look at wherever our last digit is, and here it's the thousandths. So when we want to convert this into a fraction, we're just going to put it over 1,000 because we're talking about thousandths. And then 253 goes on top. Now, obviously, if we need to simplify this, we can. Let's pretend we had 0 and 25 hundredths. This would be 25 over 100. And hopefully you know, because this is one of our benchmark fractions and benchmark decimals, that this is actually equal to 1/4. Right? This is a quarter of a dollar, right? 25 cents is 1/4, and we get that by dividing both of these by 25. All right, and that's easy. We just put our number over the correct place value, and that's how we convert a decimal to a fraction. So what about the other way around? And I know I did that fast, but because this is a video, you can always go back and pause it. You can rewatch it if I said something too quickly, but I'm just trying to make this so you're not watching the screen the whole time I'm gone. So now we're going to talk about converting a fraction to decimals, fractions to decimals, right? And I'll start with the very easiest is if we have a fraction that already has a denominator that's in our place value system. So if I was going to convert, let's not do 2, let's do 3/10. If I wanted to convert this to a decimal, well, it's 3/10, and we actually have a place value for that. We have the tenths place, so this would be 0 and 3/10. Now, what if it gets a little bit harder? What if we have 2/5? Right? Now, we don't have a fifths place value, but what I know is I can make an equivalent fraction and bring this 5 to a 10, right? So multiplying the 5 times 2 and the 2 times 2, this gives me an equivalent fraction, which is 4/10. So I know that 2/5 as a decimal is going to be 4/10. And sometimes it might even be harder than this. Maybe we have 20ths. Maybe on a test you got 18. 18 out of 20. And we want to turn this into a decimal, which you'll need to do when we're learning about percents. But again, now I could divide and get it to a 10, but I just want to show you that we can do it both ways. I can multiply this times 5 and get to a hundredths place. So 20 times 5 is 100. So I'm going to multiply the 18 times 5, and that gives me 90. So 90 hundredths as a decimal is the same as 9/10, right? It's 90 in the hundredths place, and this 0 is superfluous. We don't need it. It's extra. And those are the nice, easy denominators to turn those into decimals. But many fractions do not have that nice, easy denominator. Let's take a look at a fraction like 5/8. Okay, 5/8, and I cannot easily get an 8 to a 10 or 100. I could get it to 1,000, but I'm sure many of you don't know your times tables well enough to get you straight up to 1,000 in the denominator here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what this fraction bar means. And we should remember that it means divide, right? This is the divide symbol. So what I can do is I can take 5 and I can divide it by 8. Make sure you don't do 8 divided by 5. We're actually taking the numerator 5 and dividing it by 8. And you say, well, Mr. Wagner, that's a smaller number. We can't do that. Well, with decimals, we can. We're just going to put some zeros after it like we did yesterday when I was teaching you about long division. And what we're going to do is we're just going to follow our long division formula, right? Our algorithm, rather. So can 8 go into 5? It can't. So we'll look at 8 going into 50, and 8 does go into 50. It goes into 50 6 times. Now mom multiplies. 6 times 8 is 48. Sister subtracts. We get a 2. Brother brings down this 0. How many times does 8 go into 20? It goes in twice. 2 times 8 is 16. And obviously this is easier the better you are with your math facts, right? And since sister subtracts again, we're at 4. And then brother brings down the 0. And 8 actually goes into 40 an exact number of times. It goes into 45 times because 5 times 8 is 40. Now, if we needed to, we could add these zeros forever. But I chose this number because I knew we would stop at the thousands, right? So here we have it. We have 5/8 as a decimal is 625 thousandths. So like I said, if you were real good and you knew that we could multiply 8 times a number to get to 1,000, we could have multiplied the top by that same number, which, by the way, is 125. If we did that on both, we would end up with 625 thousandths, which is our decimal. All right? So again, I know I went quickly, but you can always rewind. You can ask your partner if you need some help, or maybe they caught something that you didn't. And I will hopefully be back by the end of the week. I'll have another video up for you guys again tomorrow. Thanks, and be your best selves. All right, see you later.